record. You all happy to be recorded? It's for everybody else. And in the chat box, I've just added my LinkedIn address. It would be lovely if you nipped over to LinkedIn and said hello to me there. And also, you're going to need your phones today or your computer, because we're going to use Mentimeter later on. So it's going to be fun, I'm sure. So we're going to start. Oh, just invite Liz. Wellbeing Week in the Law 2022. Woohoo! It's the last day. Thank you so much for joining me. We're going to talk about resilience. So how do you wake up in the morning? You're a bit like this chap. Do you wake up feeling a little bit need a coffee? I love my job, that kind of. I can see a few people nodding their heads. Well, I want to talk about resilience, and resilience to me is the proactive side of well-being. So well-being is when we look after ourselves, but we got to do it on a continual basis rather than just waiting until something crashes and burns, because so often lawyers in particular wait until we burn out, wait until it's got too much, the workload's got too much, and therefore that's when we start thinking about what we're going to do for our well-being. Resilience, kind of that proactive response. So putting things in place, well-being activities that are going to keep you strong so that when the proverbial does hit the fan, you're going to be able to bounce back. So we're going to do it through personal awareness, because you know exactly what you need to do. You know all the things that you should be doing, right? But we're not doing them all, or we're doing some, or we're doing it half-heartedly, and that's creating a resilient habit. So that's what we'll talk about today. So it will improve your self-esteem, your self-confidence. You'll be able to push back at work. This is all these big things that we're going to do after this. But we're going to look at resilience and the 3 key tools to bounce back from stress. So the first thing I want you to do is either have a look at this QR code and scan it on your phone, or go to menti.com and use the code. So if you go over to that, and I'd like to ask you the question, which statement best describes your daily life?
Can you pop the code back up?
Oh, sorry, it's 3619 8490. So it's up here. Okay, and hopefully we should be able to see this. Let's present it and see what everybody's saying. So which statement best describes your daily life? Is it crazy busy and a bit of a blur? Is it busy, productive and manageable, dull, empty and unfulfilling? That sounds a little bit dire. Or is it D, I'm really struggling? Yeah, so we're getting some results in. Isn't that a pretty picture? So some people are saying busy, productive and manageable, and majority of us are saying that it's crazy, busy and a bit of a blur. Interesting. Thank you for being so honest. I really appreciate that. So I'm going to go back now to the original presentation and explain some of the statistics that we've been looking at that people have been saying in the law that are so stressed. So IBA survey, which is the International Bar Association, said that 56% of lawyers were feeling fatigued. They had disrupted sleep, they were feeling anxious. And it's because of the traditional working patterns. We're doing long hours, a huge heavy workload, always on. That presenteeism of always being on means that we turn up to work when we're actually exhausted. And we've also got those caring roles within the family. So, and the when we feel that we're moving across to hybrid working and things are becoming a little bit more digital as well, we're losing that connection with colleagues. We're not able to moan or have a conversation about things that are going on in the office or with our clients. So it's all becoming a little bit more overwhelming. And Law Care suggested that between January and April last year, anxiety has doubled from the same time period of the year before in 2020. Lawyers are a stressed bunch. The Law Society stats tell us that 48% are suffering from mental health, but less than 20% are reporting it. So we're feeling it, but we're not doing anything about it, or we're keeping it to ourselves, we're internalizing it. And when we internalize that mental health issue, it creates problems for our body. It causes more anxious thoughts, and we can't get rid of it. 94% have agreed that they're stressed at work. And that means that 66% are disrupting their sleep. I know you like stats. I know you find these stats quite disconcerting, but this is the reality that we're facing. And 77% have agreed that we could be doing more. Employers could be doing more. Our firms could be doing more. Let's break it down a little bit. So we know that some stress is good for us. Some stress means that we're going to have sharp brains. We're going to be alert. We're going to be switched on. If something's thrown at us, we can work with it. So any surprises, and we can cope with it. It feels motivational. Sometimes stress can feel motivational. You get a new job and you're in that honeymoon phase of, oh, this is quite exciting. I feel really motivated with all this. But it focuses your energy, but only for a short time. After a while, it starts to become chronic stress. And this is when it becomes distress or negative stress. And you start to have these feelings of concern or anxiety. And this distress can be immediate. It can be overwhelm, which we term as stress, or it can go for a longer period of time. It can lead to bigger concerns. And it's outside of what we can cope with. It's not our normal levels of stress, and it can feel highly unpleasant. And it will decrease our performance because we've got that low level of stress going on throughout our whole working day. It just feels very unpleasant, and it reduces our productivity and our performance. And it can lead, as you jolly well know, to problems with mental well-being and also physical issues. Now, what I find interesting is there's a body of work by Sean Aker, Happiness Advantage, and he suggests that lawyers are the most stress industry there is. And he says it's because you are always looking for the problem. So the problem in the contract, or the problem that the client is going to find, or something like that. And as an industry, as a body, lawyers are highly stressed. It's something that we create in order to be good at our jobs. So Martin Seligman, who is a lovely positive psychologist, would say that looking for the problem, or being a pessimist, glass half full, normally doesn't work with most professions. So if you're a sports person and you think, well, I'm never going to make that jump, run, bat, whatever it is, then that's obviously going to affect performance. They know that. And in other disciplines like salesmen, if they go out with a negative or pessimistic attitude, they're not going to get the sale. Insurance agents are the same. They've also looked at students and undergraduates, and if they're a bit more pessimistic about the way that they work, their grades are lower. But lawyers, lawyers and solicitors and barristers, apart from you, because you're trained to look for the issue. You have a prudent perspective. You're going to look at all the whys and wherefores. And if you haven't got that prudent perspective, you're taught it at law school. Where could the problem come up? What's going on here? You have this ability to anticipate a huge range of problems. It's a skill. In your industry, it is a skill, and you're highly adapted for any negative situation. But what we know now with positive psychology is if we let that trip into our everyday life, if we tip that into how we're feeling at home or with community and things like that, it creates this negativity that we need to be aware of. And that's why we need to take a moment. We need to notice, when do we need this and when do we let go? And having that level of self-awareness will help so much. So if we've got the idea that we're constantly thinking about things, we're ruminating about the same problem over and over again, that's anxious thoughts. If we're feeling highly overwhelmed by our workload, that's stress. And both of these will have an effect on your physical and mental health. Your physical health, headaches, migraines, suffer from those? Stomach issues, maybe you're gurgling or you're feeling crampy or you're eating more or you're eating less. We all know the blood pressure issues and heart issues that go with stress, and that horrible feeling of being really, really tired, of getting into bed, but the brain is still awake. The brain still wants to keep going. So the body is trying to relax, but the brain is tapping on your shoulder and saying, yes, but I don't want to sleep yet. I'm a little bit anxious. I need this. I need to talk about this. I've all had that. We've all had those thoughts. And these will have a psychological effect. You can feel that anxiety, and that could lead into depression, but you'll also start to feel it's something outside of you. It's the job is causing the problem, so we'll start to feel dissatisfied with the job and we'll have greater mental health issues. And then at work, it's going to affect productivity, as I've said. Maybe we'll not go to work, or maybe we'll turn up at work, but actually we don't need to be here. We can't be here. Let me know if you're experiencing any of those. I'm going to do another share. Have a quick look at this one if I can. So this is the next one that I'm going to look at. What does resilience mean to you? So go to menti.com or this code, and let's have a look at what resilience means to you. Is it something quite straightforward, or does it mean something else? Let's have a little look at these results. Let's hide her and see what you think. Is it coming up? Is it working? Don't think it is, actually. But you're going to have to shout at me. What does oh, thank you, it is working. Look at that. Strength of mind. Oh, that's so pretty. Look at these comments that are coming through. What does resilience mean to you? Self-protection. Good. Calm. Water off a duck's back. That's really interesting. Coping. Ability to switch off. Ability to cope. Strength of mind. That's fantastic. Really good. Thank you for sharing that. So how do we create it? How do we create levels of resilience? Well, one of the things that we can look at is, what is your resilience strategy? If you were to review your present day, your life, and those around you, or maybe somebody that you know publicly, a public personality, what traits do they have? What do these professionals at any level who are resilient, what strategies do they use? So you could look at your own strategy and compare it to what others are doing. Do they have a positive outlook? Are they always cheerful? Annoyingly so. Are they always running? Or are they always meditating? What is it that makes these individuals, these aspirational individuals, more resilient? Do they have a great support network? Do they brush off comments, which is some of the things that we said in that resilience question earlier? They don't dwell on the small stuff. What's their response to being knocked down? What are the positive traits that we can learn from these resilient people? What are their attitudes and actions when they're under pressure? And conversely, who are the people that don't seem to be resilient? What are they like? Can you think of somebody that's always crashing and burning? They're always knocked down all the time. They're constantly moaning, perhaps. Everything is too much trouble. It's the opposite. They going around life just going over the same problems, the same issues over and over again, replaying it. So the question is, what can we pull, what can we notice from these people, and what works for you? So review your resilience. Maybe you can jot things down that you do as a resilient habit. Maybe you take pockets of rest throughout the day. This was something Hannah and I talked about in the bank holiday catch up, and we talked about how can we bring ourselves back to the moment. And we talked about mindfulness and being outside and seeing a tree or a leaf and really focusing on a memory and bringing that memory back to us. Maybe you're picturing a loved one's face. This is ways to help us to come back to the moment. But also similarly, just going into the bathroom and putting cold water on your wrists, that'll bring you back into the moment. Have you got great friendships? Have you got a great support network? Somebody that you can talk to that is a radiator, someone that doesn't drain you, but somebody that really keeps you going? Are you an exercise-aholic? Do you like exercise? And what exercise nurtures you, nourishes you? Meditation, sleep, what's your attitude? That's a big resilience trigger. What would you give yourself? If this was a 5-star rating, that's why my stars are in the background. What would you give yourself if you were to review your resilience? What are you great at? So I want to dive deep a little bit into some of your beliefs, because the lens that you see the world is how you act, is how you behave. Now, if we've got the attitude, okay, I'm going to exercise every day, I'm going to do a 5K every day and a 10K at the weekend because that's going to make me healthier, that's going to make me stronger. But actually, is that belief exhausting you? I haven't got time to meditate, it doesn't really suit me, I can't sit still. Is that belief helping you? We've all got beliefs. I can do this. I can do it on my own. I don't need anyone else to help me. Is that belief helping you? It's really hard to see our own beliefs. I tripped over myself yesterday. I hadn't been looking after myself properly. I thought I was overworking, and actually it wasn't overwork. It probably was more likely to do with menopause. But would I go and get HRT? No, even though I've known Julie for absolutely years. Would I go and get HRT? No, I can do it myself. I'm a nutritionalist. I've got the exercise routine sorted. I take plenty of rest. I can sort this. What belief was I hanging on to? I can do this myself, rather than asking other people or actually going to get help. So it's this unconscious beliefs that are kind of quite buried in our subconscious, and they are really, really hard to identify ourselves. So talk therapy, coaching, people, journaling. Journaling can be really good for picking out the beliefs that are keeping you stuck, the beliefs that are stopping you from not asking for help at work, or the beliefs that are stopping you from not speaking out with your work-life boundaries. I'm not going to ask for this because I'll be thought of badly. I'll be looking as if I can't cope. So these beliefs are really fundamental to why we do or we don't become resilient, why we don't use habits that are going to help us to stay stronger. The idea is to find them and disprove them. Well, that's not true. That actually is not true, and that's not helping. So what nourishes you? What do you know from your past behaviour? If you were to review your day, your week, your month, what nourishes you? What is nourishment for your body and your soul? As I say, it might be exercise, Or it could be exercise that comes back a little bit, like Tai Chi, like Pilates, like yoga. It might not be the full-on exercise that we all think is really great for us, but actually stresses our body quite a lot. I'm not saying you shouldn't do cardiovascular. I'm just saying, what else are you doing? What nourishes you? What is in your resilience toolkit? What do you enjoy? So we all know the things that we're supposed to be doing, but when you're enthusiastic about something, when you love something, like going for a walk or having your fur babies with you and encouraging you to walk, these things are going to help our mental and physical well-being. So what are you enthusiastic about? Write it down. Don't think about it. Don't do the prefrontal cortex. Oh, wait a minute, I'm going to deliberate over this. Just think what makes you happy? What can you put in your toolkit that will make you happy? And it's about being imperfect, perfectly imperfect. This is one of the things that comes up quite a lot when I work with lawyers, is that you're very, very good at detail. You need to be good at detail, but when does detail trip into perfectionism? Why do we keep going until we found all the problems? So if something comes up, if a client comes back and says, well, I'm not happy about this, you've forgotten X, Y, and Z, what can you do to let that go, to release it? One of the things that I suggest to clients is, what's your what if strategy? So what if a client comes back and says, rah, 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 ran, 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 ran? What's your what if strategy? So if we preempt it, if we have a moment where we think about what could happen and we have settled on a solution or a conversation that we would have, can I refer you back to this or can I do that? That's going to help us to let go of being absolutely perfect each time, because we've got a backup. We've got a what if, because perfectionism can really hurt our relationships around us at work and at home. It can affect your productivity because you spend ages trying to get things done. Or it can mean that you become less creative. So having a strategy, or having awareness, first of all, that you are that tendency, and then finding a strategy that works for you, is going to help. So what motivates you? What's going to give you that in the morning? We've all heard that expression, eat the frog, but what do you enjoy that's going to set up your work day well, or your home life well? Hitting the snooze button on the alarm isn't really going to set us up for a great working day. If we know what we enjoy first thing in the morning, then that's going to set the scene, and it works for work and home. What jobs inspire you? If you're an extrovert and you like client meetings, why don't you put those in the morning when you get that energy? Or if you're more of an introvert and you don't like client meetings, put them at the end of the day when you know you've had your quiet time in the morning, so you're feeling stronger. And the same thing comes at home. What does self-care look like for you at home? What recharges your body? Is it gardening? Is it being outside? Because it's going to be different for everyone. Your healthy habit is not going to be the same for everybody else. And your resilience is not going to be the same for everybody else. So somebody who finds things really overwhelming, their elastic band is going to snap much quicker than yours. But you, because you've got other things in place, you've got good community, you like being outside, your elastic band can stretch that little bit further. So what does self-care look like for you? And know that it's individual for everyone. You can create it in your lifestyle. The 8-8-8 rule, lifestyle rule. 8 hours sleep, 8 hours work, 8 hours on you. Is that happening for you? How many hours sleep are you getting at the moment? Is it good sleep? How many hours are you spending on you, and how many hours are you spending at work? So are you aware of the emails that are happening outside of work? So your lifestyle will create your resilience or not. if we're allowing our lifestyle to eat into our day. So breaking old habits, and the way I prefer to break old habits is by creating new ones. So a new healthy habit, whatever you decide, is going to push out the old habits. And if we are aware of our old habits, like not getting enough sleep or working too many hours, we know that we can push in or draw in a new habit that will help us. So focusing on the positive, that positive psychology again, being consciously aware of what we're doing and creating a new skill. And we know that new skills take a while. Do you remember that whole pattern of creating a skill when you're unconsciously incompetent? You don't even know that you're bad at something. And then you suddenly think, okay, so I'm not getting enough sleep. So maybe I'm conscious that I'm not good at it. I'm consciously incompetent. And then you start to move into, okay, I'm going to put this, this, and this in place. So I'm really consciously competent. I'm really thinking about how I'm going to get good sleep or how I'm going to get outside more. And then finally, it becomes unconscious. It finally trickles down. You're completely competent at it. You know that every morning at 6 o'clock, you're going to get up and meditate. You're going to go up and go outside. You're going to go for a run. You're going to do your Pilates, whatever it is. It becomes a habit. And if we embrace that it is going to be imperfect, it's going to take time to break the old habits and create new habits. But if you think like perhaps a sportsman, just focus on the thing in front of you, just that one habit, one day at a time, rather than thinking about how it's going to change your whole life. Being that moment management. So we talked about this last year. It's that habit interruption strategy. So you feel that you're going to say yes to the boss. You feel that you're going to say yes to the commitment at home. Yes to this, yes to that. Whoa, take a moment. Before you go yes, or before you go back to that old habit, take a moment, an emotional moment. What does that sound like to you? Go and do something else. Delay, distract yourself, and then come back and decide. And if we've still got, oh yeah, but they won't think very nicely of me, they'll think I'm lazy, they'll think I'm incompetent, we're ruminating, we're anxious, we're ruminating, it's going over in our heads, and then we'll say no, and then 3 days later we're still thinking, what do they think? Have a strategy that stops us from internal chatter. How many thoughts do we have a day? 80,000 or something, and 95% of them are on repeat or negative. Awareness. Take that moment, be aware of your thoughts, write them down, journal, talk therapy, meditation, all the things that you know, and that will help us to break away from that internal chatter. Think of those around us, people, friends, maybe it's public personalities that do it well or seem to do it well. Doesn't matter if they do or they don't, doesn't matter. But think about what they do and how you can use it, how you can adapt it for you. How can you bounce back? So I'd love you to share with me, write down, what 3 little tools are you going to do? Maybe that's too much. Maybe I've pushed you too far. What tools are you going to do and commit to? Is it that you're going to change awareness? You're going to change your attitude. You're going to be aware of your internal dialogue, and you're going to put into place, okay, I'm going to pull back, I'm going to go and do something else, and I'm going to be aware of that thought, but I'm going to thank that thought and let it go. Maybe it's something like guided meditation. That's what I do to delay myself or to distract. Maybe it's a behavioral change. So that emotional moment, you're going to stop before you actually say yes or do something. You're going to take that emotional moment. Maybe it's something like movement that suits you, running, Tai Chi, Pilates, something that's going to nourish you. Maybe it's something community-based, slowing down. Maybe you're just going to decide to slow down. Or maybe you're going to swap, this is a biggie, how does this sit? Maybe you're going to swap your Wine Friday for Bath Friday. How does that sit? Think about the butterfly effect. One flap, of the butterfly in the Amazon forest can change the climate around the world. There's a lot of steps in between, but one thing that's going to help you. Give me a scale, 1 to 10. Do you feel confident that you've got this, that you can do this, that you can find a support strategy that works for you at work? What numbers would you say? Put it in the chat box so that I can see. I'd love to know. And do you have any other comments, questions, anything you'd like to share with me? Oh, we've got some great numbers. Oh, what does your self-care corner look like, Helen? I'd love to know. Not wait to be finished before taking the rest, food, water. That's a great one, Angela. That's a really good insight, isn't it? So you're just going to stop and go and do your no. Jennifer's got increased mindfulness of how I work. That's really good. Actively release thoughts and get in nature even more. So that's brilliant, Jennifer, because you know what works for you. I'm inspired to find some mud to wade about in. That's fantastic. 8 hours sleep or I cannot function. I used to rely on a lot less. And when does laundry come into 888? That's a really good comment. So 888, 8 hours sleep, 8 hours work. And in that 8 hours of you time, it's not all you painting nails and doing your hair. It's 8 hours of doing the laundry. It's all of that goes into that. There's loads more messages coming in. Lovely hand cream, pictures of puppies. I need a puppy. Yeah, plants, love plants. Plants are so good. That's fantastic. That's so good. I'm going to stop.